if you look at Devda Vittaka Sutta, which is a sutta found in Majjhima Nikaya number 19, the Buddha says, whatever one thinks about and ponders repeatedly becomes an inclination of the mind. What this means is that it is a mental habit. And mental habit comes about because we repeatedly think about something. So much so that eventually it becomes a habit that we do automatically. Now, mental habits are useful, but there are also mental habits that are unuseful or even harmful to us. So the first thing to do is we need to be able to recognize our mental habits and differentiate whether they are harmful or not. If they are useful, we leave them alone. We only want to deal with those that are harmful or are unhelpful to us. Okay, like I say, I want to talk a little bit about mental habits and how they are formed. I often give this analogy or these examples of how mental habits are formed. It's like someone going into a virgin jungle. When you first go into a virgin jungle, there is no path for you. When there is no path for you, you have to put in a lot of effort to clear the path. Chopping down the trees, chopping down the plants, the bushes, clearing the way. So the first person to go through the virgin jungle is often the one that has to put in the most effort. Subsequently, your second trip through the path will become easier because it's already cleared and there's only a little bit left. And the third person going through will be even easier. So over time, the path becomes very clear and you no longer need any effort to use the path. In the same way, this thing happens within our mind. When our mind has acquired a new habit, if you repeat something over and over again, what happens is that the mind, the nerves start to create a new pathway. This is what science calls neuroplasticity. The neurons in our brain is elastic enough to create new pathways. The problem is that once the pathways is created, then it becomes fixed. So if your mental habit is a good mental habit, then when it becomes fixed, it is actually very useful for you. That means you don't even have to think about it. It just comes automatically, useful for you. The problem is if we have mental habits that are harmful to us. And today I'm going to share with you that we do have a lot of mental habits that are very, very harmful to us that we may not be aware of. And we will try to pinpoint some of this. Okay. So people say that old habits die hard. So if you have old habits, it is difficult to change, but it is not impossible. And there's no need to kill the habit. You simply have to replace it with a better one, which means you will have to now consciously create a new kind of thinking. Now, the scientist says that there is a habit loop, and it starts with a trigger. The trigger can be external, like a person that you see or events that happen, or it can be internal within our mind itself, a specific thoughts that we associate with certain things. And once the trigger happens, we have this automatic behavior that leads to an outcome that is rewarding. Now, the word rewarding here can be very misleading because if it is rewarding, then it should be a good outcome. But it is not so. It is rewarding in relation to something that is worse. Okay? There may be two negative outcomes. What happens is that we choose a behavior that gives us the one with lesser pain. Right? But that lesser pain may be just a temporary relief. We are not actually dealing with the actual problem. Okay? But I don't want to go deep into the habit loop, but what I want to point out here is that we must be able to recognize that there is a space or a gap between the moment when you get the trigger to when the automatic behavior starts. Okay. Now this space this awareness of this space is very important because this is where you can do something about it. This is where you can have a choice. But in order for you to see this space require a mind that is calm and clear and focused. So you need a mindful state of mind. Huh? Your mind has to be very mindful about it. Now, in the automatic response that you get when something is triggered, there are three different ways that we respond. One is a fight, meaning we go towards what we are fearful of, we face it. And in this way, there are also two approaches. One is confrontational, the other one is compassionate. Okay. Now, there are differences in whether we are confronting it or we are looking at it compassionately. Confrontations also connote a certain level of hostility and resistance to what we are facing. Whereas compassion doesn't have that. Compassion means we accept what is and allow it. We just watch non-judgmentally, right? And that is the kind of response we want to train ourselves to have. The second type of response is a flight response. We run away from it. We try to avoid it. Our system has this ability to deny reality. Okay, look at Donald Trump in the United States denying the pandemic and see the disasters the whole country has to suffer for it. Okay, so denial can be a coping strategy, but it is very often not a very wise coping strategy. The third response is freeze, not able to respond at all. I'm sure some of us have experienced being asked to speak in public and going up and suddenly face the crowd and freeze. Okay, I don't know about you, but I have that experience before. So I know this is also a third response. But what we want to do in our mental habit is to train ourselves to face whatever is there compassionately with acceptance.